Okay. I am so excited for this interview. These are two of my best guy friends. We have Joe Cano and Cole Alexander on the pod today. Welcome, you guys.
Hi.
Thank you. Hi.
I am so excited. I want to kind of share how we met and like our friendship journey, but can you guys each kind of just talk a little bit about who you are, maybe where you grew up and what you do now?
Sure. I'll start. How about that?
Okay.
So hi, I'm Joe. I grew up actually in Southern California in Palm Springs area, which I'm exactly where I'm at right now, which is very fun. And I work like in digital tech and strategy. And so that's what I do. I'm a little tech nerd type of guy. I lived in New York for 12 years, San Francisco, LA, and moved back to LA in the pandemic and met this beautiful person, Cole. Yeah, that's me.
I love it. And Cole?
My name's Cole. I'm originally from Orange County, California. I've been in LA for like 15 years now. And I grew up in a very conservative family. I'm an interior designer. And yeah, I've been with Joe for like a little over a year.
Oh,
The best year of his life.
Definitely adventurous.
Tell really quickly how you guys met and kind of like the formation of this relationship.
Tinder. Yeah.
Love it.
The Tinder romance.
Tinder romance. I literally was on a plane, landed in LAX, downloaded Tinder, and Cole was like one of the first people I matched with. So yeah, and spiraled from there. And like in a couple days we met, and the rest is history.
That's amazing. Two beautiful SoCal men
You guys.
using technology to find love together. Like,
And
what could be better?
It was during the pandemic, right? Because a
Pandemic,
year
yeah.
ago.
It was
Yeah.
a COVID date.
A COVID relationship.
Yeah. So did you guys have an intentionally like COVID safe first date, or did you
No,
just going all in?
I kissed him like after brunch.
Yes. We were COVID safe until
you made out.
Until probably the makeout, which I was so hoping was going to happen. So.
So Cole, you kissed Joe first.
Yeah, we got in the car and I'm like sweating here. We got in the car and I was just like, he was looking at me, he had this big smile on his face, and I was just like, you just kissed me? And he's like, yes. And I was like, okay. And so then it happened. Yeah.
I love it.
Because with COVID, like you never know. So I didn't want to like overstep bounds, but I'm like, if this was not COVID, I would have already kissed him. So what do we do here?
I love this.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about how we met and why you're on the pod. So I kind of want to hear your guys' side of the story, because I have actually talked about, I think on the pod, about how I met you guys, because I talk about you guys a lot. But Michelle has a good friend that lives down in Palm Springs. And if you're listening for the first time, Michelle is my best friend. And she was like, hey, do you want to come to this 4th of July party? And I'm like, yeah, sure, why not? And I brought Jared with me. So Jared and I went down, and it was like super fun. And I didn't realize how many beautiful gay men there would be at this party. And I was kind of hoping some of you guys were bi, to be honest, because you were so beautiful. And anyway, so I got in the pool and I was like talking to a couple guys, and then Joe came over first, I think.
Probably.
Yeah, I think Joe came over first and we started talking, and then Cole came over, and I didn't know you guys were together, and I'm like, oh my gosh, they're so hot. They're so hot. And I just got to know you guys a little bit, and then you guys left. So we kind of like split off into two groups, and I stayed because Michelle was there. But apparently you guys were where like the party was at, and I should have gone with you. And we immediately like became Instagram friends. And then Joe DM'd me and he's like, okay, we're all obsessed with you. We have to get together sometime. And then a couple months went by, and then I went down and I hung out with you guys, and then it's kind of been on since then. But like, what is your guys' take on all of that?
Yeah, so the friend Martin, he's the one, actually I knew him from New York, and so we were having like a bunch of pool parties at my house, pool party at his house, and when you kind of walked in, we were like, oh, let's just meet some new people. I love meeting new people. It's like very fun for me. And so we were like in the pool talking, and you were just very open and honest and very approachable, and I love that. And you actually asked questions, and so I immediately was like, wow, someone that is like in the Southern California area that actually wants to like hear about other people and not just talk about themselves. This is fantastic. So from there, I was like, okay, great. She's bubbly, she's fun, she's gorgeous as well. So it was great to talk to you. I actually think we talked with Jared as well, kind of in the pool, talking about just like random stuff, keeping it very light, but I just loved how free flowing the conversation was. And even actually that night when you're like, oh, we just kind of stayed at the house, I'm like, oh my gosh, you should have messaged us. Like we were out to dinner and then we went out to bars and just like,
yeah, why didn't I get, why?
I have no idea.
Like, oh, yeah.
Leanna, like you're the one that takes initiative all the time. I don't understand.
I know, you know, I was confused. Felt like I was stuck between a rock and a hard place.
Well, you were also with Michelle. She's your very best friend.
Well,
so
right,
like, you're not gonna like just abandon her.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Anyway, we figured it out.
We figured it out.
Yeah.
Now we're here.
Well, I love it. I'm so glad that we are friends. I just really appreciate you guys and respect you so much. And one of the reasons I wanted to bring you on the pod is because you guys have opened up to me so much about your journey and the hardships that you guys have faced as gay men. And, you know, we haven't had a gay man on the podcast, let alone two beautiful gay men in a gorgeous relationship. And I just think your stories are so valuable and people need to hear them because they're also, so much of what you've endured is so horrible and sad. And I think, you know, in 2021, we try and put stuff aside that we don't want to hear about because it's too painful to hear. But I think it's important to tell people. So I just really appreciate you guys coming on and being open to share. Jared, Jared came up with some more eloquent questions than I did.
Well, and so we can start, you know, anywhere you guys want to, but maybe a place to start is like, if you can talk about the journey of sort of first realizing and in a way kind of coming out to yourself, right? And like what that process was like when that happened for you. And was there like a period of like questioning or denial and like those kinds of things?
And before you guys get started too, I want to say, be careful if like you don't want someone's name to be named. Maybe just keep it as discreet as possible. Okay.
Who's going first, Joe?
Yeah, we're here for it. Yeah, we'll
I'll go first.
Yeah,
sure.
Go ahead, Joe.
So yeah, I first realized that I was gay, or well, actually, I didn't really know what kind of gay really meant and really was. I just knew that I was different. Actually, the difference kind of came in probably when I was like 8. Like, I'm like, I want to play with the girls. I don't want to play with the boys. Like, this is different. And so even like my parents were like, no, have more boyfriends, like have guy friends, like go play baseball, go play soccer, go play football, do all the things you're supposed to kind of do. And I just didn't want to do that. I more wanted to like dig up my backyard and try to find a dinosaur bone. That was like what I was. So I wasn't kind of like that normal kind of kid. So that's when I noticed that there was something different, but didn't know what it was or what it was called. Kind of coming into my own, probably about like 12 or 13, I'm like, okay, I'm starting to have some of the feelings like I'm more attracted to a guy than a girl. So this is kind of gay, but you know, I'm still figuring things out. You know, you're growing, you know, hair's growing everywhere. You're kind of, your mind's going everywhere as well. So you don't really know kind of what's happening. I think I really kind of knew when I was probably about 14 that, okay, I am gay. So what do I do with this? Raised super Mormon, conservative, that is not acceptable whatsoever. So for me, I'm like, okay, I'm just going to push this away. I'm going to hide it. I'm going to pray a lot. I'll figure it out. It'll kind of work its way, you know, out. When I was 16, I came kind of out to my parents, but came out in a way that was, hey, I need help. I don't want to be gay. I want to be married. I want to be, you know, Mormon. I want to get sealed in the temple. I want to do all the things that, you know, I should be doing, that I was kind of preconditioned to kind of do. And so my parents were like, we'll help you, you know, we'll do everything we can, you know, we love you, you're our son, all that stuff. So it felt very warm and felt like, okay, you know, my parents have my back. But what I didn't realize is I was kind of going to get put into like conversion therapy and kind of reset myself. And so for a 16-year-old, you know, I think we're all very confused when we're 16, especially back then, you know, in the 90s. So for me, I'm like, okay, this is great. I'm going to have a plan. I will figure this out. And then I'm going to come out of it and I'll be straight. Just exactly what I want. I'll be like everyone else. It's all I ever wanted was to be accepted and to be like everybody else. Obviously, that was not the case kind of going through the therapy. And I was in it for almost 5 years, actually. You know, just going through group therapy, one-on-one therapy, electric shock therapy. Like I did everything that I possibly could. My parents kind of kept throwing stuff at me to be like, let's try this, let's try that. And this was a program sponsored by the church. So it was, you know, it was structured and, you know, it was a lot. And I think probably 3.5, 4 years into it, I realized like, this is not going to change, but I didn't know what else to do and kind of what else to kind of come out. So that was kind of my story, and like, very different than probably most people probably haven't gone through that type of therapy, which was not kind of great. And a lot of therapy afterwards to kind of reverse all the effects of kind of that therapy as you're, you know, coming into your own, and as this kind of adolescent being told you shouldn't be the way that you are, shouldn't have the feelings that you should have. It wreaks havoc on you. So, you know, absolutely. I was super insecure. I was not the person that I was now. It took a lot to kind of build up, kind of, and to be like a functioning, you know, human again. So yeah, that was kind of like my kind of coming out and like actually coming out story. And then when I was like 21, I fully came out. And I'm like, no conversion therapy. I am gay. I'm a gay man. I like men. I'm going to go live this life. And then there was a huge like blow up of family, church, religion, school, everything, because I was at BYU. You can't be gay at BYU. So it kind of turned my entire life upside down. And then it actually led to me kind of really coming to my own and be like, what do I want to do as a person, as a gay man, and how to actually even be gay? Because I didn't know really what that meant, other than it was bad and that I shouldn't be doing anything liking guys. So yeah, it's definitely an interesting road, but yeah.
Wow. I want to come back and talk a lot about a lot of those things.
Yeah.
But Cole, give us a little
real good content there.
I
know. Mine's kind of like Joe's. I grew up in a very conservative Christian family, born again Christian. Like we never missed a Sunday church. I remember a commentary from my dad, like growing up, that was anti-gay. That kind of like it still resonates with me. But I'm the youngest of 3 boys, and I kind of always knew that I was like that I had attraction towards men. But in high school, I had a girlfriend for 3 years, so that kind of helped like hide me, I guess, if you want to say, or keep me in the closet. So that was like the last 3 years of high school. Like actually, like the first year of college, like the first semester of college, I kind of broke up with her after the summer of our senior year. But then, yeah, I was with her and we broke up, and then I kind of was always interested in boys. I was in musical theater, so go figure. And my dad, I remember my dad, like there's another comment that he made, but when he found out that I wanted to be a musical theater major, he was like, well, you know, there's a lot of like homosexuals in there. Like, are you gonna like, you know, what are you gonna do about that? And I was like, so, you know, and didn't really like, I mean, inside I was like,
You're
yeah,
like, that's why I'm there.
I'm like, yeah.
Like, yeah, I'm gonna meet people.
Yeah, I know. So so I was with her, and then I was in college, and that's kind of when I came out later on, but I never really came out to my family until I was 27 after my second boyfriend, because I thought I was in love with him and we were going to get married. And I thought like, you know, it's like, you know, that mid-20s, like, you know, something like probably similar to you, Leanna, you know what I mean? Like you're in your 20s and this person's like your everything, you know? And so it was after after Obama, like, are we telling coming out stories? Should I tell a come out story?
Yeah, do it.
Well,
So it was
actually, can I ask you a question? Like,
Yeah.
of like, so I'm curious. So this 3-year relationship you had in high school, like, it's interesting because in Joe's story, he talked about, like he had this period with the conversion therapy where he had an awareness of, being gay, but also like this kind of desire to try to like not be gay. And I'm curious, like, so what was it like internally for you in that relationship? Like, did you struggle with like, or did you feel real genuine attraction towards her? Or
I did have a genuine attraction towards her. I mean, I was intimate with her. Like, I got caught by my mom, like not having sex with her in the act, but she found out from like a journal that was written from my girlfriend to me. My mom had this really bad habit of like going in through your room and like cleaning, like, oh, I'm going to clean.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
But it's really just like, I'm going to go through all your shit and like try to bust you.
Wow.
So
Wow.
she went through this journal and caught me like that I had been intimate with her. And that was a big, huge tailspin. They almost took me out of my senior year of high school, like 6 months before it was over, and like transferred me to a different school because they didn't want me to be around her. And, like it was a whole thing. But no, I always had attraction towards her. But in the end, like when I was just being real with myself, it was more of like, I love you, but I love you like you're my sister, And so we're still friends on social media. She's married and has 2 kids. The funny kind of like sad thing, I guess, though, I hope she doesn't hear this, is that the boyfriend before me that she had, he was also gay. So like her first 2 boyfriends were gay, but now she's married with kids. So I guess she finally like three's a charm, but yeah, she's still in Orange County and living her life. And yeah,
I mean, I think that just says she has excellent taste in
well,
men.
yeah, I mean, the truth is like, it's interesting. I don't think I've ever dated anyone that then has come out as gay, but I don't know that I would be mad about it. Like I would just be like, oh, okay, like good for you, and I don't think that it would take away from our experience together because there could still be love,
I guess so. I mean, in hindsight, I don't think I've ever been like really extra masculine. So I'm sure all of her family must have been like, you sure you want
I was gonna say, was she
sure
surprised?
You sure you want to be with him for 3 years? You know what I mean? But we had fun. Like it was a good relationship. Just, in the end, it was like, I definitely broke her heart and that felt really hard. And even I sobbed when I broke up with her. I called my friend at the time, and I don't talk to this friend anymore, but I remember sobbing because it was just like the loss, like the loss of losing someone that was like with you for like that time of your life.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't sound like that period in your life was like a really like conflicted period where you're like having these feelings.
No, I mean, I definitely
towards her and like, yeah.
It was never like a conflict of like that. I mean, I definitely had attraction to men, but I was with her. So that was it,
Did you ever wonder if like I guess like, was there any thought that maybe you're bi, like that you're attracted to women and men?
I mean, I think so many men go through this, so many gay men go through, I'm bi, like it got like being bi is a gateway to like just coming out. So yeah, to my extended family, or even like people that I like met, I would tell them, oh yeah, I'm bi. But then like, I always kind of knew I was gay. And then of course it just, as you get a little older, a little more confident, I just came out.
Yeah. That's such an interesting phenomenon because my closest gay male friend first came out to like our friend group as bi, and it was like really genuine. This was like, we were in our like mid 20s, and he was like, sometimes I jerk off to porn of women and sometimes I jerk off to porn of men. And like, and he, kind of like, but he was also saying things like, I think I would like a family and children, I see that more with a woman, but I also have these feelings of attraction. And so, it's so interesting to me because it's true that that's a common step. And now this friend that I'm talking about is a happily married gay man. And that's a common step for a lot of gay men, like you said, Cole, but it's also kind of, I've heard people do this thing where they're like, oh yeah, if a guy says that he's bi, like that's bullshit. He's just on the way to being gay. And I think like that's also like, that's kind of shitty, like, because there are actually bi men as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. No, there are. I mean, especially I think now where like this whole like, there's much more people talking about like gender fluidity and like what that means and kind of and like the Kinsey scale is the thing. I think there is definitely a spectrum of people that are a little bit more gay than, a little more masculine, people that kind of go back and forth. I run a Pride ARG at my company, and there were probably like 20% of the people were guys or girls that actually were bi, that dated guys and both dated girls, or some of them were actually dating a guy and a girl at the same time, and they were like in something together. So I think it all just depends on, part of it is society, I think, as well, of just like what's comfortable and can you actually share your full self to people, and instead of being like you're either straight or you're either gay. Like growing up, again, like in the 90s, it was like gay, straight, that was it. Like bi like really wasn't a thing. That was, to your point, it was a gateway into you saying that you were gay and coming out. So now I think there's so many different kind of other boxes you can kind of go into. You kind of make your own box. And that I love that now, where you can kind of just be whoever you want to be versus being very black and white, which life obviously, as you guys know, is not.
Yeah, I think that's so cool, like the breakdown of category and stuff. Leanna, do you know what the Kinsey scale is?
I don't know what the Kinsey scale is.
Oh, so the Kinsey scale is basically like, it was a doctor, what was it, like 40s, 50s, way before the time of like when, socially acceptable. And he did a lot of like sexual experiments, and he himself was kind of bi, had a wife, but also would, mess around with guys as well. And so he's like, I want to see on the scale of how, people are, from like being super straight and masculine to maybe being like super gay and like very effeminate. And so it kind of was a kind of a sexual,
like spectrum.
Yeah, a sexual spectrum, basically. Yeah. And again, super ahead of his time. A lot of doctors were like, this is ludicrous, this is nonsense. Because back then, being gay really wasn't a thing, totally under the covers, it was not socially acceptable. So I think it was super provocative, but I love that he did that. And he was definitely a visionary and kind of coming in and showcasing that it's not just a one size fits all. There's a spectrum of everything. And we know that today to be fully true.
Yeah. And so the idea is like, no one is like 100% gay or 100% straight. Like we're all kind of like even people who are like, oh, I'm completely straight. Like you might be like 90-10. Right. And that there are people that are like 80-20, 50-50, like whatever. And that we all kind of like have some fluidity in gender identity, gender expression, and sort of like sexual orientation, sexual preference, and everything like that. And just to like throw something in here, I think, Joe, I so appreciate, and Cole, you two, both of you talking about like, this is such a thing about bullshit that society puts onto people, because we are like maybe like one generation removed, less than one generation removed from homosexual behavior being considered mental illness. Like, this idea, and it like, there was like, gosh, what was it in like the 40s or 50s, even like when there would be like underground like bars and places in like New York and Chicago that gay men could gather, like the police would come in and like round everyone up and arrest them.
Yeah.
Like, and so for, for people like the two of you, like that stigma is still so heavy, is still with us. And like, it just, I think that historical perspective like adds a lot of like just gravity and awareness to like the courageousness of like any person who comes out and like just shares their true self with the world.
100%. I mean, that's the whole like antithesis of like Stonewall and what happened there. Like the raid happened and they actually stood up. It was the first time that like a population stood up, and drag queens and gay men stood up to the police versus being raided and being arrested. And so that's why there's gay pride in June. And so that's why there's a whole celebration around it, was because that was the portion of the business of where we started to liberate ourselves from this like stigma of we're going to hide in these like underground bars and these speakeasies where people, aren't going to see us, and actually be out and loud and proud. And so there's a lot of things that we almost take for granted now. And even nowadays, like being able to hold hand like down a street, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Before that would have never been able to be possible. So it's amazing to see how far we've come. And actually this next generation of Gen Z, how people like, they don't care. Like, it doesn't matter. No one has to, you don't have to even really come out as gay. You're just yourself.
Yeah.
And whether you like girls or guys, it doesn't matter. And I love that. It's great.
Yeah. It's just like date who you want to date. Like if you want to wear a dress tomorrow, like wear a fucking dress. Like, you know, like whatever you want to do, right?
It's definitely going to be interesting to see what happens or what the world will look like when like the boomers are not here anymore, because they're really the ones that are like holding all of that, like holding us captured in so many ways.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I did not know that about, like, that's why the month of Pride is in the month of June, is that's when wow, how ignorant of me not to even look at it.
I mean,
see, but that's how privileged I am. But that's how privileged I am, is I've never had to like even think about that, you know, because I'm straight and I date men, and like, so I'm not like, it's nothing I just haven't had to think about. I wonder, Joe, can you talk a little bit about the conversion therapy that you had? Because I think you kind of talked extensively with me one time about like what it entailed, and it was, pun intended, shocking.
Yeah. So in the conversion therapy, they, again, I think being sponsored by a church was probably the first kind of mistake of this. But there's three different types. There was a group therapy. We kind of all sat in a circle, similar to like an AA. And they didn't be like, you know, this is conversion therapy because you're gay. This was same-sex attraction disorder therapy. So it was in the thing that I was a disorder that you had to like, you know, get rid of. So we had our group therapy. You talk about, you know, when did you masturbate last? Like, did you think about a guy? And so you talk in this circle about all this stuff that was really personal and very weird to be talking in this. And like, here's how you can, you know, get rid of it. And so they said, you know, like, don't have play places or play things or play people. So you had to get rid of, you know, going to a coffee shop maybe that you could possibly run into a gay guy. If you had someone you thought that was gay that was in your circle, stop talking to them, things like that. And then you had one-on-one therapy that kind of just went a little bit deeper of, they had like a spoke. It was like a bicycle spoke wheel. And every single spoke was like an overbearing mother, a disattachment to your father. There was like all of these things that kind of made this wheel, and they akin it to, if you break each one of these like spokes in the wheel, you then won't be gay anymore and you'll be straight. So you need to, you know, distance yourselves from your mom, talk to your dad more, make straight friends, go play like a sport and be really good at it, and find a mix to. And so like, I mean, it seems funny, but like, part of our assignments, they were like, go play basketball today. And I'm like,
that is wild.
Gosh,
because that's what makes you straight.
That's what makes you straight.
Yeah.
Correct, of course. You know, this is like 96, 97. So like, there's like, oh yeah, if you play sports, you're obviously straight. So this is how, and then there was like role playing as well. Of like, they'd bring in women and they'd be like, all right, here's how you would like be with a woman. And like, here's why the women are beautiful. And so like, they were conditioning there. And then I also did shock therapy because I was put in when I was younger. So when you're a minor, your parents can kind of sign you up for a lot of things that probably are not the best for you. So I did shock therapy for a bit, and that was probably the most traumatic thing that I kind of went through, because it's invasive. You have a bunch of people in the room. You really don't have any clothes on, and you're just there. You're like a science experiment. So it actually really messed up with my intimacy, to be totally honest, because it was just, you know, consistent bad, where I didn't want anyone to touch or to like hug or like even a handshake with people. I'd be like, it's okay, I'd like wave, you know. So it was definitely like a different kind of feel, but this was kind of compounded. I did it in California. I moved to Utah to kind of do this as well, and kind of go to like a main center and go to like conferences and all this stuff. And, you know, it definitely was a hard time in my life, because it just basically said everything that I'm feeling and I'm doing, and you can't just ungay yourself. You can't do that. That doesn't work. So as much as I was trying and being, you know, hard on myself, like beating myself up, like, why am I still feeling this way? I'm doing everything I'm supposed to be doing. It just made me kind of go into really deep depression, because you're not winning in this kind of game of, you know, trying to make yourself someone that you're not. And no one is in the group. You know, you don't see any
Yeah.
success. It just is a bunch of turmoil.
Yeah.
Joe, do you feel comfortable explaining what happened with the shock therapy? Like how they did it?
So they would put kind of nodes on your nipples and on your genitalia, and they would show either pictures and or videos. And if your heart rate got elevated or you got excited at all, it was a shock similar to like an electric static shock. You know, like if you rub up against something and all of a sudden you get that little shock on your hands, that's how it was. It didn't necessarily hurt, it was just jarring. And so you would kind of get a score, and they would put you in there for half an hour, 15 minutes, just depending. And it was just a consistent, and they would kind of measure like, okay, you got less excited this one, so it's working. If you retracted, they would increase the shock to get you to kind of come back down. So I was petrified kind of going in there because you never wanted to get the more of the shock. You wanted to kind of do better. And so I'd try to psych myself out and just think of anything that I possibly could so that I would never get aroused or get my heart rate up or anything, like thinking of everything that I possibly could, biting my tongue, just like, you know, digging my nails into my my like thighs, just so like I wouldn't have to kind of go through it anymore. So I was very happy when I turned 18 that I could like not have to do that anymore. Yeah.
That, like, my heart breaks for you and for every kid, like the kid that, you know, is put into that situation. I mean, just the group therapy and the, you know, that is really like trying to instill shame in someone. You know, like we all have enough problems with shame without someone like intentionally trying to insert it into us.
Right.
And then, you know, what you described, Joe, is like, you know, there's so much research on people who have been through some kind of sexual trauma, whether that's sexual abuse or sexual assault. And there's a way in which, you know, in these sort of neurological and biological systems that allow for intimacy and, you know, like allow a person to perceive safety in intimacy. Like when you go through some sort of trauma, it can break that, right? And then it can be a real struggle to like rebuild that. And like what you describe is like the intentional like destruction of that feeling of sort of safety and of being able to trust yourself and everything like that. It makes me really, really like furious and also like really heartbroken, but also like really amazed to see like where you are today, you know?
Yeah, lots of good therapy to make up for all the kind of unwinding of kind of what they did. But I mean, I used to have a lot of intimacy problems because of that. And it took a while to get that. And part of that is like the trusting of the person, trusting of the intimacy, you know, that still, you know, is there sometimes. So yeah.
I can't talk. You just better take us over.
That's not a really good story.
Yeah. So, Cole, I'm wondering if you can share with us, like, you know, obviously like your journey is different, but also like some of the kind of ups and downs of that, like coming out to people in your life.
So Joe's is so traumatic, I think, mostly because he came out at such a young age, which I totally commend him for. For me, like I said, I didn't come out till I was 27. I thought I was in love. Or I mean, I guess I was in love at the time, but I thought it was going to be like forever love. And it was right after Obama had won, but Prop 8 had also passed. And so they were blocking gay marriage. And, you know, there was the no hate campaign in California. And I decided at that moment that I needed to be an example to my family of what gay people are, and that it's not like these over the top eccentric people that you see on TV that are like promoted all the time as like, you know, the gay people. But it's, you know, we come in all different shapes and sizes, and including your own son. And so I remember I went into the kitchen and I just started, I sat down in the chair, and and my dad was like cooking some food and my mom was in the other room. And I said, I just wanted to let you guys know that, I'm gay. And my dad thanked me for my discretion and my continued discretion. And that obviously like hurt a little bit, but I remember I went home and I didn't talk to them for like a year. And my mom, I commend her because I think that she kind of got my dad to come around again. And they like ended up coming over. And then I was still in that relationship for a while. And they said, and I remember like even when that boyfriend had lost his job, my dad like really like went out of his way to like be accepting and like prayed with him that he would get another job and all this stuff. And he ended up really, really coming around to an extent. He was still a vicar at the church and preaching and doing, working on his, I don't know, even know his degree in ministry, but yeah, so he came around a lot. I mean, I still have definitely a struggle. Like I just had a huge talk with my mom the day before Thanksgiving, just, telling her that, it's hard for me to be close to her and share my life with her when, she kind of believes that I'm going to be like burning in a lake of fire for eternity. And so that's hard. But I mean, in my everyday life, it's very easy. I mean, I live in West Hollywood and Palm Springs with Joe. So it's, very easy as an adult now. But at the time, like, yeah, there's a lot of gay shame. And I think I probably still have some trauma in my brain from what, the stuff that my family used to say. But, thankfully I was never really put into a conversion camp or anything like that. It was more so just, keep it discreet. And to this day, like with my extended family, like we do not talk about me at all. And I mean, or even with my own mother, we don't talk about, like my mom knows about Joe, but she's never met him. And, it's just this unspoken, like, oh, he's gay, but we're just not going to talk about it. And so that's how it is with my family. And with like, that's pretty much it though. It's just my family. And then everyone else in my life is like cool. And it has been cool. I mean, I've been in LA since I was 26 years old after I finished design school. So it's been easy for me in that sense.
Well, I mean, you say easy, but I mean, also like like losing that kind of unconditional acceptance of your family is like anything but easy. Right. And like, and I really appreciate you, Cole, underscoring like the idea of like that coming out is something that I think is so healthy for the individual to live as your full self. But there's also this other aspect of it is to like help the rest of us like wake the fuck up and like stop being like a terrible society that judges and shames people for who they are. Like there's almost this like altruistic component of like, hey, like let's help people like get out of these really like regressive and harmful beliefs that just create so much pain and suffering in the world.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I mean, part of my talk that I just had with my mom was in relation to like bias, and that I feel like she has a lot of bias against a lot of different groups of people. And I said to her, because she has this thing with trans people particularly, where she thinks it's offensive to her to refer to like a guy, let's say like Caitlyn Jenner, to refer to Caitlyn Jenner as a she or a her is offensive to her. And I'm like, well, why? And so I had to explain to her the day before Thanksgiving when I talked to her, I was like, it costs you nothing to just say her or she, and it means everything to this person. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's like, it's hard for that because it's like, there's still that bias that's there. And it's like, sucks.
Yeah. And it sucks, right? That's the emotional labor that people of marginalized identities like have to take on.
Yeah.
Because of the sort of like, blindness and like stubbornness of people with privilege, right?
Yeah. And I just don't understand why people care so much.
Well, it's interesting. I don't think we'll be able to get through this episode.
I
know. I mean, even my story of like being a pastor's daughter, and I grew up my whole life believing that gay people were going to hell. That's what I was taught.
Yeah.
you know, and one of my best friends was gay and he was scared to come out to me. And that broke my heart.
Yeah.
I mean,
And then you know, and then like being married and then still being in the church. And one day I just woke up and I'm like, this doesn't make sense. Like, why would a loving God make someone something who they are just to torture them their entire lives? And if they don't follow the example of the traditional male female, they're going to go to hell. Like, what the fuck? Like, that's not who God is.
I know. I just had this conversation with one of my best friends I've known since kindergarten. And I explained to her the issue that I was having with my mom, and like, you know, that she probably believes that I'm going to burn in a lake of fire for eternity. And she was saying to me, well, you know, we're all sinners. And she's like, you know, she said, I have to repent for my sins too. I've had sex out of marriage. You know, and I'm going to have to repent for that. And I remember, and I was on the phone with her, and I'm glad that we had the conversation, because when I said it to her, it resonated with her and I knew that she got it. But I said to her, like, you're saying to me that I can live my, you know, in a way, what I gathered was, you're saying to me that I should live my life how I guess how I am, but at the very end, I should ask for forgiveness so that I can like go to heaven. And I was like, you're asking me to, like, you're saying that you're asking forgiveness for an action, something that you did, you had sex. You're asking me to ask for forgiveness for who I am, you know? And so that was like, that hit, it hits with me still, but it really hit her. And so it's like, it's hard because it's like, is it just who I am?
Yeah. And Cole and I had similar family, like, kind of dynamics in that sense. I've kind of not necessarily given up, but I've known that my family, I can only have so much relationship with them. My parents definitely think that I'm going to what Mormon hell is, you know, and that I'm definitely a sinner right now. And they will love me up until as much as they can. But if Cole and I get married, like, they're not coming to our wedding. Like, he's already made that. And so it's sad. And I've almost kind of made peace with, like, all right, my family will be there because, you know, my mom raised me and I have respect and I do love my family and I do love my siblings, but they will never be a true part of my life. And none of them actually really know me, which is really heartbreaking for me. And like, don't you want to have a couple that actually are no longer in the church, and, you know, and they know me much more than everybody else, but there's a stopping point. And it's sad, because if you think about, you know, religion playing so much of a big part into this, into all of our lives, you know, God is the most loving person in the entire world. He would never do that to anybody. And that's what I think everyone just needs to start following versus what people are interpreting, you know?
Yeah. There's this bishop in the Episcopal Church who has this saying, I think his name is Michael Curry, and he says it all the time. He's like, if it's not about love, it's not about God. Like, 100%. Period, full stop. Like, that's it.
Full stop.
But then the Christian church will be like, well, it's not that we don't love you.
Yes,
we
hate your sin.
Yeah, we hate your sin, but we love you. And what God has called us to do is to
call you out.
Yes, call you out. And that's loving, you know, and this is why I don't go to church anymore.
Yeah, you and so many other people. I mean, right? Like, so the fact is that in America, like, unaffiliated is now like the largest category of, like, you know, like, people are leaving the church in droves because of this like bullshit regressive stuff that actually, by the way, has no scriptural basis behind it. Like, there's no, like, if you look at the historical church, if you look at what is in scripture, there is no solid argument for this whatsoever.
Yeah.
You know, and it's actually like a uniquely American thing of like this, like, you know, vengeful, angry, you know, anyway, I'm going to stop preaching, but I wonder if we can shift gears because, you know, the other question I really wanted to ask both of you is to talk about the journey of finding community and finding mentors and finding kind of healing along the way to get to the place you are now?
Basically, Jared just wants us to, he's like, we got to stop crying or we're never going to get this episode.
Well, but I mean, but like both sides of the coin are true, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I can go. I moved to San Francisco when I was like coming out, and I found a good group of people that kind of were more mentors to me. And that was, to be quite honest, it's a little harder to find in the gay community. We aren't as inclusive with each other as I would like us to be. We put people in different boxes. So it is a little harder to find some of those people that actually can be your mentor. I had an uncle who was also gay, and he passed of HIV, and he had it, he got it back in the 80s and fortunately survived. And so he was probably more of my mentor, kind of teaching me and being like, this is what you should look out for, do this, do that. And that really helped shaped me and gave me kind of courage. And before I even, when I came out, I didn't even know he was gay because my parents refused to let me and him communicate in that way. So it was definitely interesting, but that was probably my rock, was him. That's how I found, all right, here's what I should be doing. Here's what I should be marching towards. And a lot of it was just be a good person, open up your heart, and let go of the anger, or else you won't find your happiness.
I love that.
And I'm curious, what was, after what you had been through, what was the experience of just being in San Francisco and seeing droves of gay men out and proud and having fun and connecting with each other? Was that mind-blowing?
It was mind-blowing. And I remember going into gay bars and literally standing in a corner because I wasn't drinking alcohol yet, and just I don't even know what to do. Can I even talk to them? I was so just baffled that there was this whole life. And it took me a little bit to be comfortable with it, to be totally honest, because I was just so I didn't even spend money on Sundays until I was probably 26, 27. I was deep into it. So it was interesting. But then once I kind of let my guard down and let some of these people in, I'm like, they're fun, they're jovial, there's so much happiness that can be had. So it definitely changed my perception, because you're taught your entire life that these are terrible people, and I was a terrible person myself. And so to then kind of say, okay, I'm going to join those terrible people, we're all going to hell together, that was still in my mind when I was first kind of transitioning into it.
Wow, that's awesome. What about you, Cole?
So growing up in Orange County, which is if for those who don't know, I guess they call it the Orange Curtains. It's very conservative. At least it was. I think it's
just
more recently.
Some orange hair.
Yeah. So I used to I found all my friends online at the time, on gay.com, to be honest. I was 20 years old, and
Joe, is that the first time you heard that?
I don't think I've ever said this to Joe, but I would meet people on gay.com in chat rooms. I mean, this is the early 2000s, you know what I mean? So aside from
this is MySpace time.
I think it might be pre-MySpace.
AOL. Yeah.
This is AIM.
Dial up.
Adam for Adam, gay.com.
Legit dial up.
Yep.
I met Gen Z audience.
Yeah, I would.
Sorry.
I would meet people online, and that's how I met a few friends. And then when I was 20 years old, we would drive out to West Hollywood, and I had a fake ID. Well, it was a real ID, but it belonged to a coworker, and I would use it to get into the bar and meet people. And I remember being at the Abbey, which is the epicenter of all things gay in the West Coast, and walking in, and I remember seeing two men kiss for the first time, and I was I have never seen that in real life.
Wow.
And so I was dating this guy, and he used to we used to go to the Abbey together, and yeah, I've always just made my friends through other people, and then living in LA and having my network here, and that's how I'm here.
I love that. And do you guys feel you're now do you feel mostly supported in your life and your friends, other except for your family, but in your jobs? Like, do you ever feel like there's any discrimination that comes up with that? Or do you feel like there's so much change that has happened? And
I mean, Joe works in corporate America, so that's a little different. For me, like I'm an interior designer, it's like expected.
Like, wait, you're straight? No.
If I'm straight, there's a problem.
Yeah, they don't trust you if you're straight.
Corporate America, 100%. Even this day, like I work for a Fortune 10 company, and while I'm, head of part of the Pride ARG and like right there, like people still made fun of my Pride background when I had it for Pride. And I'm like, you shouldn't be saying that on a recorded Zoom, but cool. So I think there is a lot to do in corporate America still with like diversity and inclusion. That antithesis needs to kind of spread out a little bit more. And I think we're not there yet, but this is why gay men move to cities where they feel they can be themselves. So I feel fully supported in my personal life because I moved to cities that are akin with that. I lived in New York, I lived in San Francisco, I lived in Los Angeles, live in Palm Springs. Like all of these places welcome us. I don't think I could live in a place that didn't welcome me. And I have to travel to a lot of places in the US that don't have that. And I've definitely been called out before going into some of these rural, southern red states where people will still call you faggot on the street. And that is not okay and like pains me. But part of America is still like that. And so it makes me get out of my bubble sometimes and realize that there's still a lot of work that needs to be done. It's just, I choose to not be in those states. And that's why people move out of them.
Well, and not to make this episode completely political, but this is why you don't vote Republican, because if you can say you're Republican and you still support Black lives and the LGBTQIA community and feminism, but the truth is what you're voting for is anti that.
Mm-hmm.
It is anti that.
I think, Leanna, didn't you send me that meme where it was like, don't tell me you love me and then vote for people who are against me?
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's like, I know we have Republican and conservative listeners, but it's like, just think about it. Like, what's more important? Like how much money you make on your stocks, or like people's humanity, like their quality of life? What is more important?
Right.
And to me, it's just like, I don't know. It's heartbreaking. Like, how can you listen to your guys' stories and still vote for a president who's trying to reverse the law that allows gays to be married?
Mm-hmm. This is a conversation I literally just had with my mom, where I was just like, I don't think I've ever voted for someone's rights to be taken away. Or at least their civil rights, but it's definitely like painful. Like I've had conversations with that best friend I was telling you about, where she's more conservative. And so it's hard because it's like, she said to me, like when we were voting the last time around, she's like, well, I don't think that, that they're trying to take away your marriage, but if they do, I'll be right there and we will march on the street together. And I'm like, but I would never even risk it for you. I would never risk it.
Yeah.
It's because the privilege that they have, that they don't have to worry about that.
Right.
But something that we're a marginalized group, we have to consistently worry. And that's what I think, like the voting scale, like fiscally, I'm totally Republican. Like I don't want to be paying as much taxes that I do now, but I think that's everybody. Everyone can agree, all right, we want to keep some more of our own money, but it's going back to that human aspect and even bringing kind of God into it, do what you think is right. That is what is right. Giving everybody the agency to choose what they want to do. That is the antithesis of everything. And it's really sad to see because, Cole's family, my family, very Republican, voting almost against us. And it hurts a lot when you kind of see that, because you're voting against me, especially Prop 8. That was awful. My parents even were like, I was out there going door to door in Orange County, actually, like putting signs up, getting doors signed in my face.
My parents had the Prop 8 sign in their lawn.
Yeah. Yeah. Same.
Wow.
And I took it down every time I went to go see him.
Yes. I love it. Well, I wonder, maybe this is a weird question, but I don't know, it could be a cool place to sort of like wrap up on. But like, well, I will give you both the option of questions you want to answer. One is, what would you say to your like 14-year-old or 16-year-old self if you could go back in time? Or I guess like, what would you want any like young gay man or boy to know? Or if you want to say like just what you want like straight people to know or think about.
All of these are great. You guys should do all three.
No, don't do it. Like pick.
This podcast is never
one.
gonna end.
Yeah.
I guess I'll go. I would say to my like 14, 16-year-old self that you will survive this and it will get better. And you don't have to kind of give in and follow what the social stigma is. And you're stronger than you know.
That's
I
incredible.
love that. Cole?
I don't know what I would say to my younger self because I have a totally different journey than Joe, but I guess I would probably just tell myself to like, you know, maybe be more confident in who I am earlier on. Because I feel like, especially like about to turn 40, like I think I wasted a lot of time like just hiding who I am. Yeah. So that's all.
So my final question is, you guys need to put me on your like skincare regimen and workout.
You need to talk to Cole about that. I'm just getting into
I don't know
his
what you're
regimen
talking
right
about.
now. He has a fantastic.
And maybe like, you know, help me pick out some clothes. Cole, I can't believe you're almost 40. You look fucking 27. You look amazing.
You guys, we have a YouTube channel, by the way. If you want to see how beautiful Cole and Joe are, just look up Hello and Goodbye Podcast on YouTube. But seriously though, you guys should help Jared with his clothes.
Oh no.
We can do clothes. We can do maybe some of the towels and the sheets.
Yeah.
Let's just check all the stereotype boxes.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
I love it. Oh my goodness, you guys, thank you so much for coming on and being so vulnerable. I love you both so much.
We love you too.
Can you tell our listeners where to find you if you want them to follow you or follow your story? If not, that's okay too. My
Instagram's the Cole Alexander.
And mine, and mine's the _Joe_NYC, although I should probably change that since I don't live in New York anymore.
With OPS.
All right, guys. So go follow them, and I will be seeing you guys soon.
Thanks.
We love you.
Thank you. Love you too.
Of course.
Bye.